recorded in our studios in Salem, South Dakota, TWA presents South Dakota Championship Wrestling, an ecclesiastical brand of pro wrestling. Here at TWA, it's all about the blood. Hello, everybody, TWA family, and others watching. Man, I got an exciting little podcast here today. I'm finally catching up with Joe Brody. I'm not sure I've ever done a face-to-face with him, but here he is, Joe Brody. He's a successful booker, four-time Appalachian Wrestling Aliiance Tag Team Champion, former producer and executive producer of Appalachian Pro Wrestling, Appalachian Championship Wrestling, and my favorite of all time that I really enjoyed, USA Championship Wrestling. Current American Pro Wrestling Matchmaker, which we'll get into that a little bit. And most of all, most important to me, he's a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm really, really glad you're here, too. I'm going to turn my side's volume down so we don't get an echo. But, all right. So, man, I've been looking forward to this ever since you told me. Well, and I knew it already because I kind of got to liking your USA Championship Wrestling brand. You had some things going on. We had an opportunity back in 2019 here at TWA. We were doing some shows out of a tent in Lesterville, South Dakota, and we invited some guys up here that were associated with you. We had Jeff James, the Cuban Assassin, Cuban Commando, and his other nephew, I think it was.
The Cuban Mercenary.
There you go, Cuban Mercenary. Came up here and helped us out tremendously in our first show, and so I'm super thankful for them and for you and your contributions in that, because you some of these guys you were hands on with. I think Jeff James, he was kind of your prodigy.
No,
he wasn't.
Definitely wasn't. He came to me for training, and he had 4 hours of training, a total in two different sessions with me, and our personalities didn't click. I didn't. I'm not going to get into any specifics there, but I told him that I didn't. He wrestled one event for me, and I told him that I didn't want to. I chose not to do business with him anymore, and haven't had any business with him since. Our views on the professional wrestling business, the sport of professional wrestling, are diametrically opposed.
Gotcha.
I was brought into this sport at a time when if you didn't respect it and didn't respect the people that you were learning from and working for, you get hurt, physically hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just say he's not real big on respect.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll leave it at that. I appreciate it. I definitely appreciate it. But I appreciated the contribution that, all those fellows brought to me. Cuban Assassin, that guy's amazing.
Cuban is a second-generation wrestler. I've known him about 24, 25 years. We are former tag team partners. He is involved now, once again, with American Pro Wrestling, and he's a great guy. A lot of fans probably wouldn't say the same, but he's an excellent wrestler and a great teacher, and just a good guy, good friend of mine.
Right. And I can tell. And, I know you guys got a Rumble channel. I've been checking out some clips on there. You've got a great number of promos on that Rumble channel, and I think you guys do a good job. Very comparable to what I grew up with in the 70s and 80s. Well,
that's our goal, Rick. Our goal was to bring back our kind of like our company motto with APW is wrestling the way you remember it, wrestling the way you want it.
Right.
that's what we're trying to do, is bring back studio style territory wrestling. It's really fortuitous that we're speaking right now, because 7 days from now we're going to be right in the middle of our first 3-day loop of events. We're going to have a TV taping on Thursday night, March the 7th. We're going to be in Hinton, West Virginia on Friday night, March the 8th, and Baileysville, West Virginia on Saturday, March the 9th. And we've got other events coming up as well in March in Stewart, Virginia, and then in Rich Creek, Virginia, and then we'll be in Fayetteville, West Virginia in May. And I'm looking to book towns outside of the weekly TV tapings that we do here in the Beckley-Bradley area every week. But we do our Thursday night tapings every week.
Excellent. So, I grew up in Florida, so I had the advantage of championship wrestling from Florida, Georgia championship wrestling. Of course, Crockett came on TBS, all kinds of beautiful stuff. And I saw a name associated with APW that I recognized from my childhood, and now it's George South. And I love to see George South doing what he's doing now. You want to tell me a little bit about your relationship?
Yeah, George is one of the guys that, I guess technically, you can't say that he was my trainer, but I learned pretty much everything I know about this business from George. Early in my career, I got to know George through several guys that were students of his, mainly Scotty McKeever, who's, God bless him, he's passed on now. He's been gone since April 2018. And Scotty was a really good friend of mine, and we worked a lot of events for the old PWF promotion, which was George and Italian Stallion. And then when they split off and George formed the EWA, we were kind of the core of the wrestlers that left and went with him. But George is hands down, without a doubt, there is no dispute about this, is the best trainer of talent in this business still active today. Now, there's a lot of guys out there training people. There's a lot of good guys out there. That you've got Al Snow out there training people, who's excellent. You've got Ricky Morton started a school in Tennessee recently. Jimmy Valiant's had a training school now for 30 years, and a lot of other guys. But there's nobody going to train better talent than George. They're going to know more about the business. They're going to respect the business. And I'm just glad to be part of that tree, that learning tree, that I was able to pick up a lot of things about, not just in the ring during my active career in the ring, but as far as promoting and the business itself and TV, because some of the first television shows I worked were for George. His EWA promotion had weekly TV out of Hickory, North Carolina, and that was I think I worked Southern States Wrestling TV taping for Bo James prior to that, a couple of them in Tennessee in the 90s, but it was right around 2000, maybe even early 99 when the EWA got their television deal out of Hickory, and I went and wrestled quite a bit, and I did some really big shows for EWA during that time period. I worked on shows, wrestled on shows with people like Sting and Ted DiBiase and Nikita Koloff, and big opportunities for me.
Wow. So where's George training out of right now?
He trains from, I believe, the AML Training Center in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I know he had a training school that he was running out of High Spots in Charlotte, but I'm not really sure if that is still an ongoing thing or not. I know he was running both there for several years, but I'm really not sure if he's still doing both now. But he trained people, put people in this business had a strong hand and put in some of the best talent ever in the ring into this business. Anybody that ever knew Scotty McKeever tell you he, hands down, was one of the best guys in the ring ever. Bobby Eaton, who's gone now too. Bobby Eaton used to make up excuses to team with Scotty. Said he loved teaming with him. Said he was one of the best guys in the ring, best partners he ever had, and that's really saying something coming from somebody like Bobby. He had a hand in George had a hand in training Mark Canterbury, Henry Godwin. Had a hand in training Chris Hamrick from ECW. And Kid Cash went. I don't know if he trained there, but he worked for PWF a lot, learned a lot there. Joey Morton, Lord, Men on a Mission, Harlem Heat, Ron Killings, R-Truth. They all went through PWF. Just the list is endless of guys that went through there that were just top notch talent. In the ring, and on top of that, George is a quality human being, which is a rare thing today.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, for sure. So, Joe, if I were to ask you, define for me what you see as territorial wrestling, what does that mean to you? Because there's a lot of people out there with all kinds of definitions of that. I'd like to just hear, from a pro's pro.
To have a territory, it used to mean years ago that you were a member of the NWA or paid dues to an organization that govern a governing body, and you were licensed to run events in a certain geographic area that you owned the rights to. Nowadays, a territory would be, first of all, you have to have TV, and the second thing is you have to have a regular schedule of events in that TV area. If you're running spot shows, if you run them once a week, which is a lot for most indies today, don't even run once a week. But the way I see it, you need to run 3 to 4 days a week, every week, to have a full functioning territory. Basically, the way Smoky Mountain ran was the last functioning territory. And there's somebody else that I admire a lot. I agree with 97% of everything he ever says about the wrestling business is Jim Cornette. I know Jim Cornette. Don't know him well, not like I do George, but I've done some business with him in the past, and I don't agree with him politically, but I sure agree with his interpretation of modern wrestling. Absolutely agree with it. But a territory, you have to have television, and you have to have a schedule of events that you're running off of that TV. Now, the goal with us, with American Pro Wrestling and the group of owners of APW, is that we're moving toward that. Our television right now is available in 10 different broadcast markets, and we're negotiating for more. We're available at WWON 48 in Brooklyn, New York. We're available on the cable system in East Hampton and Southampton, Massachusetts. We're available in Martinsville and Danville, Virginia area, Reidsville and Greensboro, North Carolina, Fargo, North Dakota, Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin, Carson, Nevada, West Bend, Wisconsin, Athens, West Virginia. And then we're on APWstream.com, which is something that I wanted to maybe bring up a little bit later on. But you mentioned that our Rumble page. And what you're going to get is match clips on Rumble and promos on Rumble. But really, if you go to APWstream.com, it's $5.99 a month. It's a streaming service, and you get all of our television. They're all archived on there, and you get all of the Spot Town events will be filmed and will be on there. So like the upcoming loop, 3-day loop, will all three be on there. We've got events that we did in Stewart and Martinsville, Virginia, previously in Hinton, West Virginia, and in Bluefield, West Virginia. They're all on the site already, as well as a lot of historical footage from promotions that I owned in the past under the JDR Promotions banner, which included Appalachian Wrestling Alliance and Championship Wrestling and Lord, it's been so many years, 29 years now, but I've had television on several different occasions. In 2000, late 1999, early 2000, I had TV on a single station here in West Virginia, and it didn't last long. The promotion kind of fell apart. We couldn't get all the pieces put together quick enough, and it took me until 2008 to put everything back together again. And I had television on a CW broadcast station here in southern West Virginia, and from 2008 till about mid 2010, which is was weekly television. That's 150 some episodes of TV that aired, and and I still own all that, on the rights to it. And Appalachian Wrestling Alliance, I didn't have TV, but I've got a lot of home video of a lot of those events. That back then, a VHS camcorder that had a battery in it that was the size of a brick, and it was about $1,500 for one of those.
Mm-hmm.
But we filmed a lot of our single cam events with those back in the 90s, and I'm in the process now of trying to convert a lot of tape over to digital. I've got about 4,000 hours of old wrestling on tape. That it's been a years-long process to try to get all that converted over. I've got, I'm sitting here at my desk now, and I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm looking at 10 baskets full of DVDs, and that's not even half of what I've got. I've got 4 filing cabinets over here behind me that are full of VHS tapes. So it's a process, but I try to go through it and take out a lot of the stuff that over the years, 25-year-old VHS tape deteriorates and it's not really broadcast quality anymore. But I want to keep it for my sake, for a lot of it. Some of my best matches were in the pre-digital era, so
sure.
I like to have that. I sit, that you've got the image of a man sitting on his front porch, shaking his fist at the neighbor's kids, saying, "Stay out of my apple trees." Well, that's not me. I'm sitting in the den watching 1980s, early 1990s wrestling.
Right. Hey, so I just want to get this right, so I can properly promote your new streaming package, because I think that's exciting. When you talk about your package, it's episodic, right?
Yes.
It's like a soap opera for men, because when I say that, so much of what was done territorially back in the 80s wasn't necessarily episodic. They'd hit little towns here and there and run the very same matches, just have put another guy over or whatever. But so what you're saying is you're not running the same matches from town to town 3 times a week. You're actually running episodic television. You can follow it. It's okay.
Yes. Our weekly television is set up like a studio.
Sure.
We have I've rented a building and I've built a studio, and actually what it reminds me of when I walk into the building is the old WWWF TV tapings that were done at the Agricultural Center in Pennsylvania, or maybe even in the early 1980s when Mid-South, Bill Watts Mid-South was at the Irish McNeil Boys Center.
Okay.
That's the kind of feel you get from the arena for the TV for the studio. I've had other guys say that it reminds them of the Georgia TV tapings, and I will admit to this that our interview backdrop is kind of inspired by the 1982 Georgia backdrop, but all of that stuff's worthwhile. If I'm going to imitate something, I'm going to imitate something worthwhile. I'm not going to imitate anything that what I consider to be garbage and trash that's been out there. This is honest to God's truth, Rick. I haven't watched more than 30 or 45 seconds of WWE programming in 25 years.
I haven't either. I'm with you.
It's just not it's not anything that I'm interested in. It's not anything I'm associated with. I get younger guys come to me all the time and say, "Did you see so and so? Did you see so?" I'm like, I don't even know who you're talking about. I don't have a clue.
Yeah.
I did watch when AEW had their first pay-per-view before it was even AEW. I watched the Cody Rhodes and Dustin Rhodes match, and I thought it was an excellent match. I tried to watch the first AEW broadcast, and I made it about 2/3 of the way through the match. And I got up. I said, I told my son, because he really wanted me to watch it with him, and I told him, I said, I can't watch this garbage, and I got up and went to bed, and I haven't watched a second of it since.
Oh, and look at that, CJ Knight on a little bit of a roll here, collar and elbow lock wrestler, second generation wrestler. Cuban shoots his man off. CJ into the corner, comes out and there's a choke. Well, let's see what happens here. A little bit of and the Megan Square is not tonight. And a big close side of the ring here, and he has the full support of these fans for the longer of the two. He's going to have more leverage. He probably has more a good wrestler and accomplished wrestler, but just maybe it's all do with this. The matchup, Bobby Yellow for that loss in the boot to the midsection crank that arm. Man! And Murphy does one situation. Now, Andrews or Lance Evans in the match, and I'm neglecting coming in. And let's see what the big man does. Up and over, and a drop kick reversal. Oh, and there it goes. Man, so, and Andrews and there. Yes, it is, and he just, and he gets his match, the lower body strength, and he's all over him. He's firing right hands on Lance Erickson, and Erickson, yep, and there it is. For those guys lie alone. Now, it's going to be interesting sometime. If you're in the right point, you're going to put some boot leather in there. Oh, soon. For matchups, we love videotaping. And they chose it. Oh, never happened. Oh, and there to the outside. What is he? Oh, back of the head. Pretty boy. AC the back. Oh, close. Just like that. Yes, sir. Chase Bennett. Oh, and then he just. Yeah, there it is. Oh, we'll see if we can't get some kind of.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. I find myself beginning to watch something because it's everywhere. Everybody's talking about it, and 2 minutes later, I'm turning it off, going somewhere else. Or I'm totally with you. So let's talk a little bit about American pro wrestling. You guys seem to have a pretty slick little combo of talent there. I particularly loved.
Oh, Murphy Costigan.
Yeah.
Murphy's a Scottish wrestler. Yes.
I first of all, I love. I mean, his accent. You can't double it, right? You can't really replicate it. It's impossible, especially in the deep South where you guys are,
Yeah.
right? You can't replicate that. But I mean, but he's got just the right mix of meanness and just authenticness to him, and I think the guy's got a great style of wrestling. I love it. It reminds me of territorial wrestling back in the '80s. It really does.
Well, thank you. I can just Murphy is one of the top talents out there on the roster. I can run it down right now. Our current American heavyweight champion is Lance Erickson, and he's a veteran, been around. I've known him for over 20 years, and he had a lot of success about 10 or 12 years ago with the NWA. Was a multi-area territory tag team champion and was booked to go into Japan and work for the NWA at one point, and he had some personal issues that kind of got in the way of that, and it all kind of fell apart on him. But he's back, and he just gets better every week. He's a great talent, veteran. We've got, of course, the Cuban Assassin. We've got Victor Andrews, and I'm not sure if you've seen anything with Victor or know anything about Victor, but Victor's a veteran, and he's a great wrestler and a great guy, great human being. And he has been in WWE's NXT, and he has been, I think, AEW and probably MLW and some of these newer promotions out there. So he's pretty well known in the business, in the industry, but he's the top challenger, number one contender right now for that American heavyweight title. We've got the Mega Destroyer, another veteran, been around probably 25 plus years in the business. We've got some younger guys. You probably remember from USA Championship Wrestling, Bad Luck Bobby Yella is our current television champion. We just recently had Bo James come in and wrestle for us on one of our television tapings, another veteran. Some of the younger guys, Crash Cassidy, I'm sure you remember Crash. Crash is our current Southern heavyweight champion. He's lighting it up in the ring right now with the ranch hand. And if you saw any of the video, the ranch hand was sent in here by Ron Fuller, the Tennessee stud that used to own the old Southeastern Territory. There's some video up on Rumble and on our APW stream site with him endorsing our product and sending the ranch hand in here. The manager of the ranch hand and Lance Erickson is Eric Lester, the golden one, Eric Lester. Been around in the business. He's another guy that's done a lot. He's wrestled. He's managed. He's been a producer and videographer for wrestling. Just done it all in the business. And I'm trying to think. We've got Sean Cruz. We've got Chase Bennett and Scott Storm, young guys that are really tearing it up in the ring. We do have recent new tag team champions. The Divine Dynasty is AC Divine and Dynamite Jackson out of North Carolina, and they just won the tag team titles a couple of weeks ago. And they're an excellent team. They fit in really well with their style here in APW, and great guys, and a little arrogant, but that's okay. Young arrogance, it comes along with the youth. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think. I'm sure that I'm probably leaving somebody out, but Mike Mann. Mike Mann is another top contender, and as of right now, he is the only competitor that holds a pinfall win over American champion Lance Erickson. It was in a non-title match, but he's the only wrestler on the roster that holds a pinfall win over Lance Erickson. So he is in line. Anytime there's a title shot available, he wants it. He knows he can beat him, so he wants that shot.
Yeah, you got a lot building there. 1,000 angles from that you can run. That's good stuff. I mean, You know,
Scott Lee, we haven't even discussed our association with NICW.
yeah.
But National Independent Championship Wrestling is kind of like the governing body for us. And if you wanted to draw an analogy, APW, American Pro Wrestling, is kind of like Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, and NICW was like the governing NWA. And they run events in Virginia, and they have a stake in the promotion, and they have their own champions. And Dragon Scott Lee is the current NICW heavyweight champion, and he actually has a street fight coming up on March the 30th with Bobby Yella in Stewart, Virginia, for the title, with the title on the line. So that ought to be very interesting. It's kind of out. That plays more into Bobby Yella's wheelhouse. But Scott Lee's had the title a little over a year now, and he's defended it, against everybody that's come up. He does have a win over the Cuban Assassin in a casket match back in October in Martinsville, Virginia, which was an excellent match as well. And I was able to do play-by-play commentary on that one for the video, and that's available on the streaming site. The whole show, the whole event is available.
Beautiful.
But Tony Ray is a rookie amateur wrestler out of Patrick and Henry Community College, and he's moved into the pro ranks. And he has impressed absolutely everybody in the locker room, in the ring, and fans, and just good young guy. But he recently ran afoul of the Cuban Assassin. Cuban was out at ringside during a match with Bobby Yella and Tony, and Cuban took the opportunity to shove a lit cigar into Tony Ray's eye and got the disqualification. And Tony has been off for a couple of weeks recovering from that. So it's I'm sure he's going to want to get his hands on Cuban when he comes back.
Yeah, I did see those promos. He didn't look very happy.
No, he's not happy at all, and he's another young man that to tell you, Tony's strong as a bull. He's deceptively strong. Most amateur wrestlers are well conditioned and strong, but Tony's just freakishly strong for someone his size.
He kind of reminds me of Iceman King Parsons.
He's got a little bit of. He doesn't quite have the personality, but he reminds me a lot of the Junkyard Dog, to be honest with you.
Gotcha.
His connection with the fans, for sure, because they sure love him.
Right. Well, that's good stuff. I'm looking forward to it. My plan is to get involved in that streaming service. There's nothing else out there, so there's nothing to lose.
Well, I hate to be negative. I don't like to be negative, but just to speak honestly and truthfully, I had such high hopes for the NWA when they got their
Right.
deal, and when they first started out with Billy Corgan, and I've just it took me about 2 or 3 weeks to basically about the time that they got rid of Jim Cornette, it's about the time they lost me. And I've not went back and watched it since. But we've got this week on Thursday coming up, former NWA multi-time tag team champion Ricky Morton is going to be in action on our TV show. And his son, Kerry Morton, who's a former NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion, is going to be in action. And he's challenging Lance Erickson for the American Heavyweight title. Now, a lot of our television shows, we film the TV episode, and then we have a main event match that's not aired on television. But those matches are all available on the streaming site. So the match between Lance Erickson and Kerry Morton will be on the streaming site. It won't be on television, but Ricky's match against Ranch Hand will be. So we've there's a lot of reason to go to the streaming site. You get all the TV, no matter where you're at, anytime that you want to watch it, it's there, it's available. You don't have to worry about missing an episode because it's always there. And you get every week you get that extra bonus main event match that you don't get unless you're sitting in the arena. And then you're going to get the Spot Town events as well, and they're all professionally filmed as well with commentary. So there's a lot out there.
Do you want access to the stars of American Pro Wrestling past, present, and future? Well, head over to apwstream.com, where for $5.99 a month you can see all the action of American Pro Wrestling's past, the current stars of American Pro Wrestling today, and the brightest stars of the future for only $5.99 a month. apwstream.com for all the action.
It reminds me a little bit of the way Memphis, I think it was Memphis, promoted their matches. They had a match at the end of the television program that you would never see the ending of, because it always went off air before the end of the match.
Mid-South, UWF did that a lot as well.
Oh, maybe it was Mid-South I was thinking of. Yeah. Okay.
Now, we don't. We end the TV, as a clean cut, sure. And then we go into that main event match. So it's not something where you're going to see the beginning of the match and then not get to see the end of it. Right. You get the full complete episode of TV, but we're giving that bonus main event match on the streaming site, as an incentive for people to go over and check it out. And I'm really hoping that by the end of the summer that we'll be running a full 4-day-a-week schedule, Thursday through Sunday, every week, and that we're going to be on double the amount of broadcast TV stations that we're on right now. I'll just be honest with you, I don't know of any promotion anywhere that's got the kind of coverage that we've got on broadcast television. Now, you've got a lot of promotions out there that they throw a couple of home video cameras up, and they've got an announcer that they overdub some commentary onto their house shows, and they put them out there on YouTube. But as far as an actual produced television show that's being aired on broadcast TV or multiple broadcast TV platforms in multiple states, honestly, I think we're the only one out there. I know MLW, I think, has multiple outlets for their shows, but I think NWA is just relying on that CW streaming channel. And of course, I'm not even trying to compete with AEW or WWE. It's apples and oranges. Right. We're not even presenting a product like that.
Well, they're different products. The WWE, I don't know what they call themselves. They used to say they were sports entertainment. I don't find it entertaining, so I don't know what it is. But your product is way different. It really is entertaining, but it's not even meant to be. It's
professional wrestling, presented and treated as a sport the way it was intended to be.
Right, which to me is entertaining.
Yes.
But you're not purposely trying to go over the top. You're not throwing a doink in the middle of a match or
No. Yeah. I've actually had a couple of guys, a couple of the face bank tennis shoe guys contact me wanting to get work, and I'm like, no, I'm sorry, but I'm not interested. Just don't see the necessity in any of that. If you don't have wrestling gear, if you don't have boots and tights, you don't belong in the ring. Why would a fan pay my good money to buy a ticket to come and see the same thing I can see walking up and down the aisle at Walmart? It makes no sense to me, and I don't understand why guys won't invest in themselves. I mean, there's a guy here locally around on the East Coast here, and he's all over Facebook, and he wears tennis shoes, black socks, and basketball shorts, and he is just all over the place proclaiming himself to be the greatest thing since the invention of sliced bread. And I wouldn't go from here to there to pay a nickel to see him pitched in the ditch somewhere. I just,
Yeah. you know, I don't know what to say about that. I'm breathless like you are with that. And this is a good segue and good transition, because I'm going to let you kind of get on your old man on the lawn side, and I'm going to let you kind of go off a little bit on the state of pro wrestling, because I'm you talked about it a little bit, but guys like you and I think we can see totally eye to eye on the state of professional wrestling. It just doesn't really exist. And in fact, if you look at what's going on at the very top, and I hesitate to use the very top, because I don't really want to equate WWE to professional wrestling.
But look, they are the most visible.
Yeah, right.
The most,
but
they have a worldwide audience.
What they got going on up there with that big corporate merger that they just acquired, I don't think it's going to look anything like wrestling in 10 years. I really don't.
Well, there are some people that I've talked to inside the business that feel like that the whole business is necessarily, after the scandals that have gone on, the whole business is going to trend back to the territory style. So I think I'm ahead of the curve if that happens.
Right.
Because I've never stopped being that way. There's a lot of times, and I don't mean to demean you when I say this, but there are times when I look around the landscape here, up and down the East Coast and all through the South, and there's only two guys that have fought this thing tooth and nail all the way, and it's me and George South.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
And Cornette's fought it. There's three. And I'm not putting myself on the level with either one of them, but I can tell you that I've probably been as vocal about it to a smaller listening audience as either one of them have. A lot of the guys that should know better have made good money in the business of professional wrestling have just completely given up. They've given up. They don't even. I mean, it used to be when I first started in the business, you went to a show and you were a young guy and you showed up and you were dressed nice and you shook hands with the promoter and introduced yourself and said, "I'm here to help whatever you need me to do." You help set up the ring, you help set up chairs, you help carry the concessions stuff in, whatever you had to do. And then you went in the locker room and you got your seat in the corner and you put your towel out on your seat to signify that was your seat. And you sat down in the corner and you kept your mouth shut and your ears open. And somebody eventually would come and say, "Okay, you got so-and-so." And it would inevitably, because you were so young in the business, it'd be somebody with more experience. So you'd get up and go to them and introduce yourself and shake hands with them and say, "I'll do whatever you need me to do," and that's how you got yourself over in the business. And there was a lot of times that I worked guys. I can tell you, for instance, the first time I ever worked Bobby Blaze, Bobby had been all over the world, had wrestled everywhere. And he was the All-Star Championship Wrestling heavyweight champion, had just come back from Japan. And I wrestled him on a TV taping. And I did exactly, I went and told him, I shook hands with him, and I said, "Hey, you can trust me. We'll have a good match." And we went out there and had one of the best matches that I've ever had, and I've been trying for 20 years to find a videotape of it. Can't find a copy of it anywhere, but it was a very, very good match. One of my better matches. That was actually a 3-day loop of TV tapings. We did 2 tapings on Friday night, 2 tapings on Saturday night, and 2 tapings on Sunday afternoons for 6 episodes. And I wrestled 6 times in 3 days in 3 different towns, 6 different opponents, and all of them good matches. But the best by far, I thought, was the one that I had with Bobby Blaze, and I've never been able to find a copy of it anywhere. So, Bobby, if you hear this, and if you've got a copy of it, I'd love to have a copy.
There you go. And I've seen it happen the other way for you too. So I saw a match. The Sheik was wrestling against a new guy. I don't know. It was USA Championship Wrestling. I have no idea who the guy was. And he looked just as stiff as a board. And you were having to literally put the guy over, and,
yeah,
you were doing all the work. The guy was just a meat bag in the ring.
Yeah.
So,
I know exactly the one you're talking about. He was wearing a mask. Phantasma Roja.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The Red Ghost in Espanol. Yeah, and yeah, that was bad. That was brutally bad. Yeah.
But what I'm saying, that wasn't a put down. That was to say, hey, sometimes the work gets really critically hard because
Yes.
the guy that you're wrestling against is just a complete stiff, really has nothing, no knowledge of what he's
Well,
doing. Yeah.
You want to hear a funny story about that?
Okay.
In the year 2000, I went to Hickory, North Carolina for a TV taping, and I was told that the guy that I was wrestling was a guy named Shogun the Sexy Samurai. So this guy comes up to me, and he's got long blonde hair. He's tan. He's in shape. He looks like Patrick Swayze from Roadhouse. And he's calling himself Shogun the Sexy Samurai. And I was like, what is this? And so I was told that we were going to do 20 minutes
Oh, boy.
on TV. And I'd never met this guy before. So I told him, I said, listen, when we get out there, you listen to me. And I said, don't you touch me until I tell you. And he said, okay. So I go out to the ring, and I'm there, and there's another guy, Rob Walton is his name, and he had injured his knee, so he was doing guest commentary with the regular TV commentator, and the table was set up right up against the ring. And this guy, this Shogun guy, he kept eating Altoids in the back. I mean, one right after they eat a whole box of these Altoids. And we got in the ring, and I go out, and I'm in the ring. I'm doing my thing, and here he comes, and he hits the ring, and he comes through the ropes, man, like the whole building's on fire, and he's throwing karate kicks at my head, and I'm doing this, and I bail out on the floor, and I look over at Rob, and I'm like, what in the world is this guy's issue? So long story short, I get in the ring and proceed to just beat him senseless, and at one point, I shot him in off one side to the other, and he hit the ropes chest first.
Oh.
And when he turned around, Bruiser Brody booted him right in the face, almost kicked his head off. And he went down like a sack of potatoes, and he hung his head off the side of the ring, and he starts puking up all these Altoids.
Oh, man.
And after the match, Rob told me, he said, my God, after that kick, I thought you kicked all his teeth out. I thought he was spitting his teeth out when them Altoids were coming out.
Oh.
But he kept begging me to end the match, and I was like, no, we got to go 20 minutes. And I just got the guy down on the mat where I had him under control, and I just absolutely just stretched him for 20 minutes. But, you're trying to make money. At the time, I was in a pretty good position with that promotion, and I was on a little run, and we were building up to something, and I wasn't about to let this idiot kill it. You know what I'm saying? And if that meant I had to get a little stiff with him, then that because the same thing would have happened to me when I started in the business. Believe me.
Sure.
I've worked on shows with guys like the Iron Sheik and Manny Fernandez, guys that would absolutely rip you a new one in the ring if you got out of line. And I mean, even other guys like Robbie Eagle, Maestro, excellent amateur wrestler. Just a lot of different guys I've been on shows with in the past. I've worked on shows with Tully Blanchard and Pez Watley. You know what I'm saying? Guys, top notch guys, and
Sure.
They treated the business seriously, and you better treat it seriously, or somebody was going to teach you a lesson. And it just is what it is. I believe in the old school way of doing things, and I've never set out to try to hurt anybody in the ring, but
Sure.
There's been a couple of times when I've thrown a few clotheslines that were probably a little stiffer than what they needed to be.
Yeah. Well, so I can understand it from both sides. I am that stiff, because we were a small promotion in 2019. I didn't really have enough guys to barely fill up a card, so I went and put a mask on, and I got got in the ring, and I was that stiff guy. I was that stiff guy that had to get taught a lesson. So I know what you're talking about, and so I appreciate your story, because we hear that all the time. I mean, this is a week where we just got through mourning, Ole Anderson and Virgil, right? And that Ole Anderson fella, I have gotten addicted to listening to shoot videos with Ole Anderson, because if there's anybody who can shoot it straight, I think it's Ole Anderson.
Bobby Yella has, over the last 6 months, has called me the independent Ole Anderson.
Okay.
So I wear that with pride. You know what I mean? Ole was always one of my favorites. I grew up here in the South in the Mid-Atlantic territory, and became a fan in the heyday of Ole and Gene as a Minnesota Wrecking Crew, World Tag Team Champions against Wahoo and Paul Jones. And man, you talk about physical matches. Get the Andersons in the ring with Wahoo, and there's going to be some physicality.
Mm-hmm.
They had great matches with Ric Flair and Greg Valentine and Valentine and Baron von Raschke, and just so many good teams. Yeah. Paul Jones and my superstar. Great teams came through the Mid-Atlantic area.
Wrestling 1 and 2. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
We can go on and on and on and on all day with that. But I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just I want to thank you, Joe, for coming on here with me.
It's been man. I enjoy talking real wrestling with somebody who can appreciate what I'm trying to say.
Well, you can get that with me for sure, because I'm reviewing my childhood right now, just trying to learn some things by what I'm seeing on the tapings. Kind of wish I was a fly on the wall in the back room with some of these guys back in the day. I'd love to have been there. That's where I think I love having conversations with guys like you, Joe, is you were in those back rooms with some of those guys.
Those guys, I've been in the locker room with a lot of them. I saw the Iron Sheik absolutely blow a gasket on a ring announcer one time for having chewing gum in his mouth. I mean, just completely blow an absolute gasket. So, just funny. There's a lot of funny stories. Sheik, I don't know how many people have ever heard this, but Sheik was afraid that somebody was going to try to steal his boots, his curly Q boots. And I worked several shows with him back in the late 90s, when he was still wrestling independent shows. And he used to shower with his boots on because he was afraid that somebody would steal. And just crazy stuff, there's making road trips in the car with guys like Ricky Morton and George South. You can't help but learn.
Yeah.
If you just keep your mouth shut and listen, those guys, one of the best compliments that I ever got ever in my career. I was wrestling in South Carolina, and it was an afternoon show at an outdoor flea market. And I wrestled Scotty McKeever, and we were like the third match on the card, and the main event was going to be Buddy Landale and Ricky Morton. And me and Scotty did about, 15, 18 minutes in our match, and we came back through the curtain. When we came back through the curtain, Ricky and Buddy both were standing there and congratulated us. And Ricky looked at it and said, "Well, guys, we can all just pack up and go home now. It don't get no better than that." But that was all Scotty. That was all Scotty. I just listened. But man, to get a compliment like that from somebody like that, I've never forgotten it. And I've wrestled in flea markets, and I've wrestled in huge arenas, and I've wrestled in a prison. Did a church ministry outreach event with George South in a South Carolina state prison one time, and the heels were all the baby faces that day.
Yeah, I guess. But you're hitting on what we're all about. We're a little bit of a different kind of promotion. We're our whole purpose is to lift up Christ, but we want to do it in an episodic way, because I've seen so many of these Christian wrestling promotions that they break their entire momentum at the end of the event, and they start to rattle off like they're preachers.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm kind of a Kafebi guy. I hate the fact that we killed Kafebi. So I kind of want to restore as much of it as possible, keep that storyline going. Yeah.
I've worked a lot of those outreach ministry shows with George South over the years, and I can tell you that I was a part of one last summer, where George gave his testimony at the end of the event, and there were 13 people came up at the altar call afterward. 200 and some odd fans in the building for the event, and 13 of them got saved that day. So there's good that can come of it. That's definitely for sure. There actually, I've not worked with them in a long time now, several years, 6-7 years, but Richie Scruggs, he used to wrestle as American GI. He runs a ministry promotion in North Carolina. And he actually goes every year and takes a ring and a crew and goes to the Philippines and does a ministry, does several shows over there. So, Richie's a really good guy. Him and his brother, Dozier. Dozier clotheslined me one time and almost knocked me out with a clothesline. But he smartened me up to it beforehand. But good guy, good guy.
Right.
And Dan Holman is the partner of Richie. They're both down in the Carolinas now, but Dan is actually from here in West Virginia, and Richie wrestled all throughout West Virginia with PWF back in the 90s. So he knows this area real well. A lot of fans know him, would remember him.
Well, and if you ever need a good referee, one of my good friends is in Kentucky, and I know he'd love to get out there to West Virginia. So
I'll definitely keep that in mind, because we're looking at expansion big time.
Yeah.
I want to be running 4 days a week, every week by the end of the summer. So,
sure.
I'm definitely, I've got an excellent referee, and a couple of referee trainees under him right now. But you never can have too many referees. You never can have. You never know what's going to happen.
Right. So Joe, hey, appreciate you, brother. I love what you're doing. I love your mindset. I'm with you. I love listening to Jim
Cornette.
Yeah, there you go, Cornette. I don't know why I wanted to say Crockett in Crockett Cornette. Yeah, okay. Jim Cornette. I listen to his podcast, all the time, and sometimes I barely can make it through them, because of his slants and his biases. But you're right. The guy talks. He talks straight when it comes to territorial wrestling and that stuff that's going on today. So I appreciate you. I appreciate who you are, what you represent, and I look forward to seeing where APW goes, because I believe you are right at the beginning of that curve that's coming back to territorial wrestling.
I hope so. I'd love for that to be my legacy in this business, just to be able to bring it back. I've been fighting and scratching and clawing for it now, for a long time. I was there. I was part of it when it was on the downhill turn, and I remember what it was like before, and I would absolutely love for it to go back to that. The main thing that I see today is the young generation of wrestlers coming into the business are absolutely unteachable and uncoachable. They've never seen the wrestling that you and I grew up on. They're not even aware. I won't mention his name out of embarrassment, but a few years ago, I had a young guy in the truck with me traveling to a show, and I'm just talking, giving him advice, and he's only had a handful of matches at this point, and I had gotten him booked, to get him out there. And I told him, I said, you really need to start watching Stan Hansen. You need to start working like Stan Hansen. And I said, I think it would do you a lot of good. And he's just quiet. And I looked over at him, and we're driving down the road, and I said, you do know who Stan Hansen is, don't you? And he just looked at me and said, no. Now this guy was 1 year old at the time, okay?
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And I told him, I said, I should just pull this truck over right now and make you get out and walk. But I didn't. But they've never. These younger guys. Every year, there's more and more guys that coming into it that the only thing they've ever seen is John Cena, for God's sake.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that's what they aspire to, and what they aspire to is the absolute worst example that I can think of to be in wrestling. I mean, now, no, don't get me wrong. John Cena as a human being, John Cena as a wrestler, when he was prototyped in Ohio Valley or when he was out there in California,
right.
Excellent wrestler. And he knows how to wrestle. He did what they told him to do in order to make money that he made. Okay, I don't begrudge him. I'm not trying to trash him personally as a human being.
Sure.
But I wouldn't spend 2 seconds of my time watching the garbage that was him. In WWE. There's some other guys. I know another one that Batista.
Yeah.
I know him. He actually came and wrestled for me when he was Leviathan in Ohio Valley Wrestling. I cut a deal with Cornette. I was running weekly shows in West Virginia, and every week they would send a different guy over from Ohio Valley to wrestle on my shows because I was doing Sunday afternoons and he didn't have anything on Sunday afternoons. And Batista came over and never in my life have I been around a guy who had the exact combination of the perfect size and build in the body for professional wrestling and the worst attitude of anybody I've ever met in my life about it. Just
that's a ring mover there, boy. I saw him work the ropes, and that ring would move about 3 inches every time he hit the ropes.
Yeah. But he had an excellent match with Brian Logan down here in 2001 in Princeton, West Virginia. Excellent match. Cedric Alexander's another guy that George South trained, and he's in WWE now, been up there for years, making good money. And the first television taping he ever worked was for me, and the first title belt he ever won was for me. You think old Joe Brody ever gets a mention in the magazine or anything anymore? No.
Well, I think we've done ourselves an injustice. Some of the older wrestlers, when they get on these shoot videos, they go a little bit too far. I think we tell too much about what was going on in territorial wrestling. And what happens is these guys, they get enamored with what's going on in New York. They get enamored with that stuff because of the bright lights and the attention and the women and all that stuff. And it's going to take a little bit of time, but I think we can get their taste buds going back for territorial wrestling. I
miss the brotherhood that it used to be in the law.
I'm sure.
You don't have that anymore at all.
Right.
We've got it in APW because there's nobody, anybody that comes into APW that's got the wrong attitude, they're only there once, and that's it. Don't need you. So,
right.
We got a great mix of veterans and young guys, and I think we're doing something quality. And if anybody's listening to this, check us out, apwstream.com. It's $5.99 a month. You get access to all the TV. You get a bunch of historical footage, and you're going to get a lot of the spot shows are already on there, but we're getting ready to do a bunch of new ones that are going to be on there too.
And that's the last word from Joe Brody. Remember, this is Rick Hidalgo from TWA, and here at TWA, it's all about the blood.
Do you want access to the stars of American Pro Wrestling past, present, and future? Well, head over to apwstream.com, where for $5.99 a month, you can see all the action of American Pro Wrestling's past, the current stars of American Pro Wrestling today, and the brightest stars of the future for only $5.99 a month. apwstream.com for all the action.
Recorded in our studios in Salem, South Dakota, TWA presents South Dakota Championship Wrestling, an ecclesiastical brand of pro wrestling. Here at TWA, it's all about the blood.